In the small town of Brantford, something strange had begun to stir in the dead of night. The kind of thing whispered about only in dark corners of the local diner or when people were alone, far from prying eyes. No one really believed it until they did. It started with a few people going missing, one by one, in the most unassuming way. At first, they were people no one really paid attention to. An elderly man who lived alone, a young woman who kept to herself. But then it began to spread. Each time, their absence was marked by strange, unsettling occurrences. Empty houses with the door left wide open, lights flickering at odd hours, whispers carried by the wind that seemed to come from nowhere. Local authorities were baffled. No signs of struggle, no footprints, no clues. Just the eerie feeling that something wasn't right. It was when Sarah, a waitress at the diner, disappeared that people started to truly fear what was happening. Sarah had always been friendly, always quick to smile. But when her shift ended late one night, she never came home. The next morning, her car was found parked in front of her house, the engine still warm. But Sarah was nowhere to be found. The only thing left was a single, strange mark on the floor of her bedroom, a dark, hand-shaped impression, like something had pressed into the wood, but left no trace of who or what had made it. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the streets of Brantford grew quiet, the air seemed to thicken. A heavy presence hung in the night, suffocating and dark. People stayed indoors, locking their doors, clutching at the familiarity of their own homes. But some couldn't stay away. Some still ventured out, lured by curiosity or the sense that something important had been left unsaid. One such person was Mark, a young journalist who had heard the rumors and wanted to uncover the truth. Armed with a camera and a notebook, he set out into the woods that bordered the town. He knew the stories, the ones that spoke of a being that roamed in the dark, watching from the shadows. They were just stories, until now. As he walked deeper into the trees, the darkness seemed to grow thicker, and the air felt heavier with each step. The sounds of the forest faded away, replaced by a suffocating silence. And then, just as he thought he might turn back, he saw it. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light, a shadow shifting unnaturally. But no, it was there, something standing motionless, just outside the reach of his flashlight. The figure was tall, almost unnaturally so, and its form was shrouded in darkness, as if it were made from the very shadows themselves. Mark's heart raced, and for the first time, he felt a true sense of dread. The figure moved slightly, a whisper of motion, and Mark felt a cold chill sweep through him. "Who's there?" he called out, his voice cracking with fear. But there was no response. Instead, the figure moved closer, its outline more defined now. A pair of eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the light from his flashlight. It was watching him, and Mark could feel the weight of its gaze. He tried to back away, but his legs wouldn't move. It was as though the air itself had turned to stone, holding him in place. Then, in a voice that wasn't a voice at all, but more like a thought pressed into his mind, it spoke. "You should not have come." Suddenly, everything went dark. The flashlight slipped from Mark's hand as he fell to his knees, paralyzed by fear. His breathing became shallow, his heart pounding in his chest. He could hear something moving around him, something just beyond the edge of his vision. But he couldn't move, couldn't scream. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, everything went silent. The dark figure was gone, leaving nothing behind but the chilling echo of its presence. The next morning, Mark's camera was found by the edge of the woods, its lens cracked and its memory card missing. The only clue left behind was a single photograph, one of the last images Mark had captured before his disappearance. In it, the figure stood, half in shadow, watching. The town of Brantford would never be the same. The stories would continue, of course, but now everyone knew. Something was out there, in the darkness, and it was always watching.